This is Cher, and I'm here with Jason and Rob. Guys, if you had to describe this podcast in 5 words or less, what would you say?
I'm going to go with Wile E. Coyote guzzling gasoline.
I'm thinking climate change, diarrhea, hurricane.
Are you serious? Maybe I should do this thing on my own.
Fine. It's a show about how to stay sane in a world where there's too many people consuming too much stuff and the planet can't take it anymore.
You had me at diarrhea.
Caution, if you're allergic to 4-letter words, you might want to try a different podcast.
Hi, Jason here. Before we dive into this episode, I want to let you know that when we recorded it, I was working on a report with the help of Post Carbon Institute. The title of the report is The Future is Rural, and it provides a lot of detail on the topic of this episode, the food system. You can download The Future is Rural at www.postcarbon.org, and I hope you'll give it a read. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. You ever been to the San Francisco Bay Area, right? You guys know the Bay Area.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I used to live down there.
Right, me too. And I got family down there. I visit sometimes, and oh my gosh, have you ever been stuck in traffic?
No, what's that like? This is America, right?
Traffic in the Bay Area? Nah.
Well, you know, it's surreal. Like you can be in this, because the Bay Area has kind of rolling hills, and you can be somewhere and you can see to the horizon. Imagine twilight, right? It's like evening commute, and it's twilight, and there's the red lights ahead of you, miles and miles of them, and then there's the white lights coming towards you as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like from 8 lanes of traffic or something like that.
Well, I like that you call it a commute. I'm thinking like it's the evening sit or the evening parking lot.
It's the sit and start and sit and start and sit and start.
I mean, I don't live there anymore, partly because I couldn't take it. Because what I think about when I'm in that situation is, what a freaking waste, right? We can be doing better things with these fossil fuels.
You're talking about the fuels. I think a lot of people are sitting around thinking, this is a fucking waste because I'm sitting here, I have better things to do. But you're talking about a different kind of waste.
Yeah, I'm not talking about I need to get home and watch Netflix or something like that.
Right.
No, I'm thinking
a lot of people just do that in their car while they're waiting.
Right. Yeah. Well, this algae died for us, right? Yeah.
This algae died first. Is that a little like Jesus died for us? But
Wait. Are you talking about how the fuel was made?
Yeah, I'm going way back in time.
I thought somebody just put it there.
We got to be respectful.
The dinosaurs put it there.
Okay.
Yeah, and dinosaur blood and algae all kind of commingled, and it got trapped, and this stuff is precious. So I get into farming, right? And I look at what happens on a farm and how much fuel goes into plowing a field, and then how much natural gas goes into the fertilizers that get applied, and then you might have to harvest it with a combine. These are amazing machines.
Well, we all like stats. So with one San Francisco commute, you could feed the world for 27 years, right?
Something like that. I don't know for sure, but it's bad. It's like a bad. It's irreverent. You know, to waste it on this, just sitting in this traffic jam. What kills me is I'm thinking like the people in the Bay Area are like, they're well fed, right? They're getting delivered all this food, and I'm going, wait a second, there's these farms that need this stuff more than you do to sit in this traffic jam. And how long is this gonna last? Right?
Or the people sitting there need the farms to have it.
Right?
Because
it's a prioritization issue for me.
Well, most people don't need the farm for right away. I mean, you can.
They could lose
the average
pounds.
American can wait about 6 or 8 weeks before they need the farm.
Well, I think the average Venezuelan, how much have they lost? Right?
25 pounds or something.
Right. Venezuela is having trouble. So there are situations, and there are where societies sort of have trouble and they really care about food again a lot. But right now, I guess we just want our evening commute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, sitting there, I had that experience just the other day. I was at a coffee shop and drinking coffee sitting outside, and there was a woman who was parked, and she was on her phone. And I swear to God, she was out there for at least a half an hour, and her engine was just running. You know, like, it wasn't a super hot day. it was a totally beautiful day, and she could have just opened the fucking window and turned off her engine. But no, she just sat there with her engine running for half an hour.
Did you have bad fantasies about doing things?
I was slowly, like, I could have reheated my coffee just with the anger and animus I had in me.
Sharon, he got so mad. I bet he could have turned that car over with his bare arm.
Oh, yeah,
just like
totally.
lifted.
I mean, people talk about mothers doing these heroic things to save their children. Yeah. Fuck that. No, I want to flip her car over because she was just wasting this fuel. Right. You know, like, no, forget what she's doing to warm the planet. That is awful. Right. And the other crap that's spewing out of the tailpipe of her car. It's just the idea that this shit is so cheap,
right?
That nobody even thinks twice about the fact that, like, they're literally burning old ancient sunlight,
right?
You know, sitting there twiddling their thumbs, playing video games on their phone.
That's a God-given American right, boy.
I mean, you see this all the time, right? Like, especially, I think your example of sitting at a coffee shop. Like, you're trying to sit outside, relax, read something maybe, and here comes the guy with the blower or the person sitting in their car, just wants the AC to run while they're, like you said, talking on the phone. It's just, how much do we discount this stuff? Like, we just don't care.
We price it so cheap, so of course, you know, we do that.
Can I kind of lay down some information here?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm trying to give people that don't have a perspective on this a perspective. All right. So ancient Egypt, you guys heard of that place?
It's kind of like the Bay Area, right?
It used to be. It's like, you know,
the future Bay Area.
Silicon Valley, a lot of sand there.
It was the original. It was the original, like, civilization. And in ancient Egypt, there were about 3 million people during the time of the pharaohs and all the pyramid building, when all that big action happened.
Yeah.
So 95% of the people grew all the food for the 5% that could be pharaohs and the pharaohs, you know, minions, and could build the pyramids.
Oh, so you're counting in the 5%, the pyramid builders.
Yeah, there were about 100,000 of them at a time.
Right. Who probably weren't like...
They were aliens, right?
I think the aliens did build the pyramids. Yeah. They. It's not like they were part of that set of the elite, like the pharaohs.
I think they usually were worked to death within a few years.
Right.
But you know, you fed them. You had to feed them. You know,
sure.
A few thousand calories a day. That was the surplus from the people who were actually doing the work for the rest of society. And it would take about 20 years to build a pyramid or something like that. So, like, think of 100,000 people working for 20 years for your average pyramid. Right? And then today you can take there's a guy that wrote a book about this, and he did this stat. It was great, a 2004 book. And the stat was, one flight from New York to Cairo uses as much energy as it took to build one of those normal pyramids. It's called the Step Pyramid. But it took 95% of the population to give the surplus, so that over 20 years, some poor part of the population who was, you know, being treated pretty poorly, they were probably, you know, prisoners.
Well, this gives me a good idea. I think American Airlines should have a contest where when you fly from New York to Cairo, you actually win a pyramid. You get a pyramid for yourself. You just get one out there in the desert, and it's the same amount of energy. Why not?
It is pretty much the same amount of energy. And it only costs what?
I don't know. I'm pretty out of it.
I don't know. I was say $1,000.
A few $100.
Yeah, $1,000. $1,000 gives you a ticket to somewhere where you can look at these pyramids. It took like 100,000 people 20 years to build. It goes nuts. And now, of course, today it's the reverse. How many of you farm? Do you guys farm?
Oh yeah. No, I haven't done a hard day's work in my life.
Yeah.
No, I don't farm.
No, it's pretty rare. I think 1% of the population is officially a farmer.
I'm going to say, until I moved to Oregon and met you, Jason, and met a couple of your colleagues, I don't think I ever knew a single farmer.
Right. Because they're so
You never met farmers at, like, going to farmer market or something like that?
No, I don't think I went to a true farmer's market until I was here.
Yeah.
I think the three of us middle-aged guys, we grew up at a time where that stuff was disappearing, and you didn't really see it.
It's kind of coming back.
Well, I've been lucky because, so we talk about the Bay Area. I was, living before I moved here. I was living in north of the San Francisco Bay Area, and there were great farmers markets around there. And actually, one of the things that my wife really prioritized was getting to know, she'd try to buy as much as she could from the farmers market, but she also wanted to know the farmers.
Can I tell you guys a really sad story about farmers and farming? So I went to high school in the South, a suburb of Atlanta in Georgia. We were just kind of middle-class suburbia. And our high school had a special day when we played the rival high school in football. It's a Friday night. And so Friday at my school was Farmer Day, where you dress
every
up
week?
just when we'd play that football game.
Okay.
You'd put on your plaid and your straw hat and act like an idiot because
Right. Carry banjo.
farmers are to be. Well, no, this wasn't Deliverance, but
So basically-
farmers are to be denigrated, right?
Right.
Farmers
Made
are to
fun
be
of.
made fun of.
You're like dumbing down. That was the idea.
Like this
Yeah.
is we're now going to be idiot farmers. Yeah.
Yeah. I kicked their butt on the football field, which, by the way,
No, we always lost.
that's ironic. So a football field, by the way, is how big?
100 yards,
Okay, in like area,
50 yards wide. I can't do that kind of math on the spot. Come
it's
on.
1 acre,
Is it?
almost exactly 1 acre.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, so here's what amazing to me is like as a human being with my own like body and tools, I might be able to manage cultivating, I don't know, maybe a quarter of an acre.
You're talking about like hand turning the soil with a shovel.
Yeah, doing that
Planting
kind of
everything,
planting stuff,
harvesting
harvesting.
everything.
Yeah, I once made a garden that was about the size of a yoga mat that
Yeah,
way. I thought
exactly.
that was pretty tough.
Right. I mean, so I'd be
I had
working
a
pretty.
tomato plant once on my balcony.
Yeah, exactly. So like with the human labor kind of thing, you can take care of, a few of you, a family, and maybe a family, extended family could handle an acre and feed themselves.
Could an acre feed you?
Yeah, an acre, if you really intensively work it and stuff, you could
Probably
feed.
eat a lot less meat, though, huh?
Yeah, eat a lot. The meat goes, the meat is basically like,
All your neighbors.
scraps.
You're eating your neighbors.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. When they get older, decrepit,
Yeah.
they start limping.
Easy
they start
to
limping.
catch.
Yeah,
Break.
exactly.
You want the young meat. You don't want that tough,
Harder to
bristly.
catch.
Veal. Yeah. Yeah. But no, a family can manage an acre and feed themselves probably with hand tools and stuff. But when you start thinking about like, well, what's happening nowadays is we use these fuels and we put them in machines, and then they can one guy or gal with little toggles and levers and buttons.
And GPS and
Yeah, you don't even need that, but that helps maybe sometimes.
Some chemicals usually
And
as well.
chemicals, yeah, you've got your synthetic fertilizer, which derived from natural gas, but you package that all together, and it's called industrial agriculture, and one person can cover hundreds of acres, really, and provide so much food that instead of 95% of the population getting a surplus to feed another 5% that don't have to farm, it's the other way around. It's like 5% or less of the population can feed everybody else. And that's only because we've got this fuel.
But what's wrong with that? That sounds great. And then the rest of us can go and watch YouTube videos.
Yeah, and sit in traffic jams.
Yeah,
And we
sit in
can
camps.
we can record podcasts.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I know that's what's so bizarre. In some ways, it's great, right? You think, okay, we've freed ourselves from the toil and the insecurity of this, and so in some ways, I think this is what's led to a great deal of scientific and technical progress, and more people can be artists, and in some ways, that's okay, great. That's the world I live in, and we all live in, and we in some ways appreciate that. But are there any downsides you can think of? Help me out here,
Well, my daughter listens to a lot of music, and when I hear that, I think that could be a downside. But now I'm just sounding like a middle-aged dad character, so that's not cool.
Yeah.
There are lots of downsides. I mean, look, we're all connected with Post Carbon Institute, right? So, Rob, you and I work there, and Jason, you're on the board, and we are well aware and try to communicate a lot to people what are some of the downsides of our current dependence on fossil fuels. So I'm happy to kind of summarize them. One is there's a lot of environmental impact from us burning those fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Right. So there's contamination. You talk about farm stuff, where there's a lot of runoff. There's basically these dead zones,
Right.
Which is runoff from ag
Agrochemicals,
production.
yeah.
There's all the particulate stuff that goes up in the atmosphere. There's the fact that we're depleting topsoil because we're tilling the hell out of it.
Yeah.
25 billion tons a year of topsoil that's getting lost.
Wow.
There's climate change,
Yeah.
warming the planet through the burning of fossil fuels, not obviously just on the farm. It's all those fucking cars,
Right.
seeing traffic and other things. But the big one, I think, at least related to this issue, right, is the fact that these things are non-renewable. They're a depleting resource,
Yeah.
right? So if we're consuming something like 10 to 12, calories of fossil fuels to produce 1 calorie of food, which
Yeah.
is roughly what's happening in the food
Good
system.
good job. Yes,
Yeah, I know. Then, and it's a depleting resource.
Right.
At some point that might be a problem.
Right.
And if we build out a system this way where we're
Right.
dependent on that.
Well, and I think you're also being quite generous with, okay, we have all this extra time and extra way that we can focus our attention. And you talk about science and art and all, but there's a lot of us that aren't doing shit with all this extra time and available resource.
We're seeing
that we
traffic.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I don't want to get totally judgmental here, but, maybe there was some good to be had from having a little more labor in the economy.
Right. I know. I think so. I mean, I've traveled a lot to other parts of the world. Burning a lot of kerosene at 35,000 feet on the way.
You hypocrite,
Yeah,
you.
traveling at 650 miles per hour and in my recliner seat. It was awesome. Anyhow,
You're just sitting there bitching about the service.
I couldn't get my drink in time, and the food wasn't really
And those
that great.
bathrooms are really small.
It was very small.
They are, yeah.
Anyhow, I got there. I got through it, and so I'd land in some so-called third world country, and then you got to the countryside, and there'd be these like 6-year-old kids in the highlands of Peru who are like herding 30 sheep down the road to the new paddock, right? Or these families working together harvesting potatoes, and you're just going, these populations look nothing like the people that, they don't do the kind of things that the people that I grew up with do. Completely different lifestyle. But in many ways, they're not so dependent upon these fossil fuels. And if you look across different nations, there's a huge range. There's some nations have 80% or more of their population still involved in growing food for themselves and their families and their communities. And if you look at how much energy they use per capita, it's tiny. And so there's this incredible relationship between the two. You look at statistics on this, and in countries where they do use, a lot of fossil fuel energy and to be natural gas and coal and oil, and you tend to get this drive towards removing people from producing their own food.
So is that why there's such a backlash when you talk about limiting fuel use in a place like America? Is because people are afraid of having to go do that work?
I don't think people realize that that's what it means to limit their fuel use, because how many people honestly think about where their food comes from or what it takes to grow their food?
Yeah.
I don't know that they're thinking that much about it.
I know the food, it comes from the grocery store.
That's
Yeah.
right. Or, from McDonald's.
Right.
Well, but let me bring up a long-term kind of perspective on this, okay? You guys have heard of David Holmgren, the permaculture guy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Several years ago, he came up with this thing called the energy descent scenarios, or future scenarios, and one of them was energy descent. And he's got a new book out called Retro Suburbia, right? And so you can look at that book, and it's interesting. But he basically wrote that book thinking about a scenario in which there's less and less energy available to societies like us, in the United States or in Australia, where he lives. And here's what he wrote. Energy descent is the erratic but ongoing decline in the material and energy base supporting humanity. As high-quality fossil fuels are depleted and the impacts of their past use continue, such as climate change, the nature of society will change to reflect many of the basic design principles, if not details, of pre-industrial societies that worked with less energy of lower quality. This will require a relocalization of the economy, a re-ruralization of settlements, and in many countries, a reduction in the population that can be sustained. So that, that whole idea that you relocalize and re-ruralize because you don't have a super abundance of energy is what fascinates me, and why I get so much what I get upset about the waste, of the coffee shop person, is that we need time. Like if only a few percent of us actually know how to do anything anymore on the land, we need to save that stuff and not waste it.
Yeah, not only are there very few of us, but they're older, right?
Yeah.
They're older and
about 60 is the average age of farmers now.
Yeah. We don't have a lot of young farmers coming up.
Yeah.
I do want to say I've met quite a few young farmers, so there is some positive movement that way.
I think we live in a pretty unusual space.
That's probably true. But I also want, it's no spoiler alert that the three of us are aligned with David Holmgren and think that when energy starts to decline, we have to do things entirely differently. Yeah. But that is not the mainstream view at all, right?
No.
And I mean, I'm not even talking about everyone across America or the world. I'm talking about people who are concerned about climate change.
Okay.
The mainstream view there is that, whatever, we just switch. We don't worry about fossil fuel anymore. We just switch to renewable resources. We're going to use solar energy and wind power,
electric tractors,
and we'll just keep doing more of the same, except for more of it.
Yeah, and people will be confined to like urban cities, centers and stuff.
Yeah, we'll have vertical farms. We'll be growing stuff on our roofs and on the sides of buildings.
And robots will go into the hinterlands and gather grain for us from
That always kills me. Like, you ever try to grow something in a beautiful natural setting? It's not always the easiest thing. Now try to grow one inside of a building. Like,
this also really ticks me off. I mean, I think I would like anybody who is proposing eco-modernism kind of perspectives on, come visit me if you want, and I'll give you tours around and show you how farms actually work and what it really takes and what the problems are. I mean, I don't think those folks have any actual tactical, practical experience in the real world doing farming.
Well, I think what they're doing is confusing technology and energy, right? Like, they think because technology has improved so much, because we've had this incredibly stable supply of energy and cheap, that because the technology can improve like that we can do anything we want. Yeah. But it's all dependent on that fossil fuel energy supply that we burn in traffic and waste by building ski resorts in the desert.
I think part of it, when you talked earlier, Rob, about high school and people dressing down as farmers and that being sort of like considered to be lower class or something. I remember talking to, and I won't name the organization, but I remember talking to somebody who was working for an environmental justice nonprofit that was really focused on trying to create green jobs, and they're all about trying to create jobs in solar industry and renewables in general. And I asked them about, well, what about the food system? What about growing food? And that was so unappealing to them because they saw that, and I understand it. Their view of labor on the farm is the plight of, often migrant, undocumented farm workers who have a pretty hard life, get paid shit. It's not aspirational, lift yourself out of poverty, get a middle-class job. Renewables, building wind turbines or installing solar panels does that, but their vision of what it means to work on a farm is going backwards, right? And not forwards.
So this is really interesting to me because I've gotten a pretty solid introduction to farmer, mostly through you, Jason. And recently, one of our website, resilience.org, which runs all these great stories, it ran one on this woman wrote it. She had just returned from the first Eco-Socialist International Conference, right?
Interesting.
That sounds pretty, I'm sure the capitalists out there are like, eco-socialism, yeah, this is a bunch of crap. But it stayed with me what she said. She said in returning from the conference that the people there adopted this position that the small farm would be the base unit for an emergent future society. And it would be founded on these ideals like recovery of historical memory and territorial organization by bioregion and respecting the rights of nature and decolonization of the mind. I thought that one was particularly fascinating. And then reconfiguration of indigenous nations. And the reason that stayed with me is I've been trying to think, like, yeah, what would society look like if we don't have that fossil fuel base, which we know at some point in the future we won't, and maybe sooner than later if climate change is progressing as rapidly as it is. And so I think that reorganization to the small farm, it's a going forward in a way, but it relies on this wisdom that maybe we got to pull from our past.
Yeah, from past and from other intact agrarian societies to some extent as well. I think that's the only way possible to manage this long term. Like, I think, I brought this up of like, we'll save the fuels for the big equipment we have right now because we're going to need them for a while. Right? If we just remove the diesel from the farm system,
we'll go hungry.
We'll go hungry really quick.
Can we drink that? Would that give us some calories?
It would be helpful.
Well, it would put some people out.
That might help.
Yeah. But
let me go get a gallon real quick here.
But while you're like rationing your fuels for the food system, you also need to be realizing, okay, if I'm having to ration fuels for the food system, I better be working on new systems that don't require these fuels. And if you do that, that's going to require, as David Holmgren says, a re-ruralization. I mean, that's a big term, re-ruralization. What does that mean? That's if you look at demographic trends in the world, more people now live in cities than live in rural areas. And that's the first time in human history that just kind of happened, that threshold happened in the last few years. And he's saying, well, as we go down through energy descent, societies are going to have to go back to more of the structure on the land of more people need to be in rural areas. I think of it, the analogy I think of is if you have a dairy farm, okay? You know what dairy farms are? What do they make?
They make moo-moos.
Yeah, moo-moos. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you have a dairy farm, the deal about dairies is that the cows have to go outside. Traditionally, they would go outside to eat, and they would go out and pasture, and they would eat. And then they would come back to the barn twice a day, and then they would extract from their udders.
Right. And they eat cheese, right? That's what they go out and eat.
Exactly. They extract from their udders the milk. Okay? But twice a day, you have to walk them outside and then walk them back. So there was a natural limit to how many dairy cows you could manage, because if you had too many dairy cows, you'd have to walk them too far to be practical to get to the far pastures. So it limited the size.
They couldn't get back in time.
It would just take too much time. Right. It would just take too much time. It was too much energy and time and effort to manage fields that are too far away, walking distance. And you think about cities, right?
They need to put them on escalators and
yeah. How many cows can you get on each story of the Empire State Building?
Yeah. The Hyperloop the cows.
It'll smell so good in there after a while.
Yeah. So cities are the same way, right? The only way we can have cities as big as they are is because we don't have to walk the food to them, and we don't have to walk the waste products back out of them. They're coming in by train. They're coming in by trucks, right? And then there's somebody showing up and they're removing our garbage, and there's pipes removing our sewage and pumping it like crazy. So without all this extra energy that we have, the cities can't be as big as they are. And that's where the re-ruralization has to happen.
What's so interesting to me about this is that if you asked 100 futurists, you talk to any person who studies demographic trends or anything, you talk to 100 of them, how many of them would predict what David Holmgren is basically saying is going to be
-7 of
one.
them.
Right, exactly.
David Holmgren.
I mean, and you talk to them about that, and they think that you're nuts because everything has been pointing in the exact opposite direction.
Right.
And same thing with the food system. Everything's been pointing to concentration, efficiency
of labor, not of anything else.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's get everything, get people concentrated in cities. And people live in cities are greener, remember?
Wrong.
And well, but that's what people think, right?
Yeah,
so
phony.
They use less, they use less energy, supposedly.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get people in cities and we're going to grow things in these kind of industrial processes because of efficiency. You talk to them about this idea of, no, we're actually going to have to live in smaller cities. We're going to have people going out of cities.
Yeah,
They
live
think
on
that you're
land.
nuts.
I don't think you guys understand what a futurist is. A futurist is somebody who tells people what they want to hear, right? We will.
That's how you get a job as well.
We're in the wrong line of work.
We're going to
aren't
3D print
Food.
We're going to get rid of cows. What are you talking about? We're just going to 3D
Well,
print
people are
your
working
milk
on
and
it right
cheese.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys are part of the wet blanket society, basically. That is not a good future scenario.
Yeah.
But there is, on the flip side, I kind of feel like there are people who, and I'm guilty of this a bit, where we embrace, I think a lot of people have embraced sort of local food, organic food, ethical food. That this has been a growing movement in this country. And I think a lot of that's driven from a values perspective or a health perspective. And we tend, those of us who are like really do-gooder progressive types, we tend to romanticize the small farm and the small farmer, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people might say, oh, well, this is all going to be a good thing, right? We're all going to grow food, and small plots. But there's probably something, at least in the near term, I think this is what you're talking about, Jason, where in the near to medium term, we might have to actually use fossil fuels, right? And use them wisely, which is why it drives us, I think, all of us so crazy when we see people, burning it on stupid
Right.
reasons, because we actually do need it right now to grow food. Even if we decide that we want to do it in a different way, there's 7.6 billion people on this planet,
Right.
And can we actually feed that many people without all the inputs of fossil fuels?
It'd be pretty tough. Yeah. So I think that, what do you do if you're an individual understands this information? I mean, I think
Jump out of the top of a vertical farm.
One, don't leave your fucking engine running while
Yeah.
you're talking on the phone.
well, what's fascinating to me is to think about that. Okay. You mentioned earlier, like 10 units of energy go in the food system to produce 1 unit of food, right? It's totally backwards, right? If we were a pack of lions, we'd be starving. You chase 10 impalas to get one, or you run out of energy. But how do you then, as an individual, take some control and also then maybe become more adaptable to the future, whether for yourself or your kids? Well, I think at home, 3 out of those 10 calories you're talking about are in the home. 2 out of 10 are on the farm. So the farmer is only using, it's bad. Okay. The farms are using 2 units of energy to produce 1 unit of food. Okay.
That's not great.
It's not
That's
great.
not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. The home is using 3 units of energy out of that 10 for the 1 unit it gets in consumption. So all the cooking you do and the refrigeration and all that.
And probably the food waste, too.
And food waste, we waste, about 30% of our food at the home level. It's even worse if you start looking at what waste.
Like restaurants.
Yeah, and
grocery
in the
stores.
processing system.
Yeah.
But 50% of that is in the sort of the processing, and transportation is a little bit of that. But it's the food processing and packaging.
Mm-hmm.
And all the intermediaries we have, the stores, the retail establishments. So if you can eat seasonally, right? Know how to actually cook, know how to cook the right amount so you don't waste, and cook food that everyone likes to eat, and it's a nice balanced diet. And then learn how to support those local farms that are using best practices to reduce their energy use on the farm. Figuring out a way to eat locally, seasonally, and be a great chef.
A little bit lower on the food chain too.
And eat lower on your food chain. Don't eat as much meat. I'm like, not all meat's bad. I think some meat's really good. Pasture based meats I think can be great to restore the soil.
Oh man, we are going to get a lot of hate mail for that.
No, I think it's true though. You need the soil's getting tilled all the time is some of the most destructive things you can do.
Right.
You think all of this is better than becoming a breatharian?
I taste better. It tastes a lot better.
You get a little more energy out of it.
Yeah.
Wait, what the hell's a breatharian?
That's me and Jason have been working on this diet for a while, right? Where you
just breathe air?
Yeah, but you have to turn it into calories for your body.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You have to wait till the planets align correctly, and you've got to.
Yeah.
You let me know when that happens,
Yeah.
all right?
But
I'll come back, you'll be a skeleton.
All right.
But I think there's a lot of individuals and households can do, but I also think there's a lot of work that can be done in your community to build more food security and to learn about these issues. PCI has some great resources on the food system.
Yeah, and people should check out David Holmgren's stuff too.
And David Holmgren stuff is great too. So, you guys hungry?
Yeah, let's go.
Can we eat
some
some people?
Let's go breathe some air.
You want to get some fast food burgers?
Oh yeah.
Milkshake? Fries?
Let's wait until it's the peak traffic time.
Hang
Okay.
on though. Can we first go buy a Hummer so that we can
Yeah.
go through the drive-through in a Hummer?
Okay, let's do
All
this.
right.
All right, see you guys.
Sweet.
That's our show. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the podcast, and while you're at it, rate or review it at iTunes. That really helps get it in front of more people. To learn more, visit postcarbon.org/crazytown. And if you want to actually learn something instead of listening to us bozos, you should check out Post Carbon Institute's Think Resilience course. It's 4 hours, $20, and will seriously change the way you see the world. Catch you next time on the mean streets of Crazytown.
We have a great sponsor today, fellas. I don't know if you know about them. You've had them. Sugar Bowl.
Oh, I love that.
I mean, it's so much more efficient, right?
That's my favorite cereal, Sugar Bowl. I love
Just
it.
Cut out the crap and just give us sugar,
Right?
right?
Yeah.
It's so good. You know what the best way to eat Sugar Bowl is?
Tell us, Rob. What do you like to do?
I like instead of milk, you pour corn syrup over it. High fructose if you got it.
Yeah.
And what's great about it is that every Sugar Bowl serving is individually wrapped in plastic.
Oh
That's
yeah,
awesome.
It comes in that styrofoam bowl. It's so comforting.
Yeah, you get 2 pounds, 32 ounces of pure Sugar Bowl in every serving.
Wow, that's
Well, I give it to my kids every morning, and then I send them off to school.
yeah. The teachers love it. They're like, wow, look how awake and alive these kids are. I love it.
Now, if you order now, if you buy a case of Sugar Bowl, it comes with a free month supply of insulin. It's a fantastic deal. You can only get this right now.
Yeah. Do you get any kind of like coupon for the clinic?
No, but you do get a plastic shovel to scoop the Sugar Bowl into your mouth.
Oh man, that's what's missing. I love shoveling sugar into my mouth.
Well, all kids like this a lot. You're going to be a very popular parent if you
Totally.
buy your kids Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I had to buy a Sugar Bowl for my kids because they came home and they were crying about the fact that their friends had it. You know, they were actually eating it for lunch at school. Their friends.
Well, yeah, I mean, the school system is serving kids Sugar Bowl now for the
Yeah.
breakfast. If you go.
Totally.
You know, I used to give my daughter Pixie Sticks for breakfast, and she was like, "It's too sour." So I started giving her Sugar Bowl.
And the Pixies are small. It's just like a little straw. The Sugar Bowl, you have scoops. You can scoop the sugar into your mouth in scoopfuls of plastic with a plastic scoop.
Yep. So we can't recommend Sugar Bowl highly enough. You guys should go out and get it. We'll actually have Amazon send it to you. So
we should eat some before our next episode.
I'm there.